actually his coach, but he soon surpassed his father's ability to coach him. In high school, he swam for Mount St. Joe. He's not only in their Hall of Fame, but some of his records still stand. His senior year, he received an appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy and 10 full-ride scholarships. It didn't make my grandmother happy to find out that she was going to have to pay for college because he really wanted to swim for Vanderbilt. Dad was poised to go to the Olympics, but life happened and the Olympics didn't happen. He continued to swim and to love his time in the water. He swam for masters and competed at their top level. Erin attempted to swim some practices with Dad, and even though he was a smoker and not as svelte as his college days, he kicked her butt in the water and enjoyed every minute of it. For me, some of my greatest memories do come from our time swimming and competing together. I also competed in masters with him and loved swimming in the ocean with him. I inherited being a fish from my dad, along with his nose, his dimples, and the long second toe. When I was a kid and I got mad at my dad, I would tell him that as soon as I had enough money, I was going to get that second toe shortened, a nose job, and my dimples filled in. He thought that was hilarious. It only made me more mad. I say all of this in jest because the truth is, I am the definition of a daddy's girl. Dad went on to get his MBA from Loyola. I can remember him teaching night classes and having to take us. And the three of us would later remark that he was so different in front of his classes. There was this patience and grace about him. Not there when he helped the three of us with our math homework. In his early career, he worked at Equitable Bank and Maryland National. There were some other side ventures. One was Consolidated Delivery, in which my siblings and I still to this day joke about the fleet of delivery cars. Ford Pintos, some multicolored, most missing the passenger seat. And we had to wash them. We didn't like that part. Another was Skill Surgical, which is where Dad met Sharon. They supplied medical equipment, and on the weekends, we had to go to work with Dad. And we relished in turning that music in the warehouse up as loud as it would go. We cruised around on the forklift. We played hide and seek. Somehow Sean always managed to scale to the top and just laugh at Erin and I running around looking for him because he was just that quick. I remember when Dad took us to the house that we were going to be moving to in Pasadena. This is long before it was cool to live in the Dena. We have some Dena folks here. Long before that. I was 7-ish. It was so far away from everything that we had known and done. I think we all groaned a ton, but for sure, those were the happiest days of our childhood. We were next to the water. We spent our summers fishing, crabbing, boating, swimming. Winters were spent playing in the snow, games by the fire, ice skating out to the river. Dad was always up for a fire in the fire pit or out on the ice. One time he made the fire on the ice in a wheelbarrow with metal legs. Kind of ended up at the bottom of the creek. But Sean did definitely inherit Dad's ability to make a roaring fire, and still does. We all loved our crab feasts and barbecues in our backyard. We all dreaded Saturdays, chore day. Nobody could leave, nobody could go anywhere until all the chores were done. Dad delighted in waking us up on those days by blaring the Star Wars theme or something equally obnoxious. But he also usually made breakfast on the weekends, and that was a big treat for us. When Dad met Sharon, we, the kids, were sure this wasn't going to last. She didn't like fishing or crabbing. She couldn't ice skate very well. There's a very funny story of her falling in. But one of the things is, she took the tinsel away from our Christmas tree and put baby's breath in it. Who ever heard of baby's breath in a Christmas tree? Not us. In fact, it's quite the family joke that we all bet on the morning of the wedding that it wouldn't last. We all had different time frames, but we were sure it was never going to last. Well, we all lost. They celebrated 35 years in September. They loved each other dearly and preciously, and they traveled together. They loved their adventures. Not long after they married, Sharon took a job in California, and Dad took a job with Silicon Valley Bank, so off to Cali we went. Dad loved his time at Silicon Valley Bank. He loved the work and the people. He opened their first office in Southern California. He truly enjoyed the investment banking and reading and talking with the startup companies. He would come home with stacks of proposals for companies looking for funding, one of which, a tiny little company, sent that beautiful spray over there. And then we thought it was entertaining, so we tried to read a few of them, but for us it was a lot of numbers with optimistic prognostications that we didn't really understand. And Dad always said, I'm making two piles. One's a maybe, and one's a probably not. Those overly optimistic ones usually went in the probably not. Dad left SVB to work with Growth Capital Partners, and he commuted to Texas for many years. He loved his time in Texas, and we have some of our Texas friends here today. He loved the work, he loved the people. I think before 9/11 he even loved to travel. But he found something that he loved doing, and he kept at it. During this time, Dad and Sharon decided to move back east and bought the farm here. So we drove their menagerie across the country. Wasn't that an adventure? That's a story for another day. He finished his career in accounting here at Berry Hill, and he loved the people there as well. I could talk a lot about his many achievements in the business world, but the truth is, that stuff didn't really matter to my dad. Early on, he did what was necessary to provide for his family, and eventually he found a career that he loved and he was quite good at. He did a good job. But for him, it was always and will always be about the people. He loved people. He would do anything for anybody. If you needed someone to listen, he was there. If you needed help, he was there. If you needed a laugh, he could sure do that. And we'll miss that laugh. After Dad and Sharon moved to Virgilina, Dad found comfort in the community and the church. He loved being a part of brotherhood. He loved helping with whatever was needed. We enjoyed our phone calls where he talked about the chopping wood or the big game feast or the harvest dinner. He loved it. He called Heidelberg home with pride. When we arrived after driving cross country with their animals and our farm wasn't ready yet for them to move in, this community showed up in force to help. And that was a true demonstration of Southern hospitality that we've always been grateful for. No matter what was going on in my life, I could tell my dad. Even if it was a mistake, I could count on my dad being there, sometimes letting me make that mistake and then picking up the pieces. One funny story is the day that I called to tell him that I decided to enlist in the military. I was a sophomore in college and I'd already decided to join when I graduated, but I decided I wanted to go now. So in my excitement, I called my dad and said, "Hey Dad, guess what I did today?" And he replied, "What, sweetie?" I'm sure he expected to hear a story about work or school or something. And I said, "I joined the military." And I heard this, "You did what?" And it was not that happy voice that Dad had, it was the not so happy voice. Well, my excitement quickly dissipated. He was concerned I wouldn't finish school. He told me to go get those papers and tear them up and to not even think about it until I had a degree in my hand. He eventually admitted that it was the right thing for me at the time, and in the end, I not only got my bachelor's degree, but several postgraduate degrees. I knew my dad was always proud of me. Dad raised 3 kids in a time and a place where that just didn't happen. Single dads were not a thing. He sacrificed so much so that we could go to parochial school. We never went without. In fact, we never really knew how tight money was. He never wanted us to worry. He would never have told us something that would cause us to worry. He was a workaholic, but he also made sure that we were very well taken care of, and we had some great adventures on a shoestring budget. He was a great cook. I know that many here enjoyed his cooking, and we'll talk about it for a long time to come. I love to cook with my dad. We enjoyed cooking together, and he got my sister and I subscriptions to Cooks Illustrated, and when it would come out, we'd all talk about what recipes we had made and what we were doing. That was a joyful part with Dad. Dedication, work ethic, kindness, compassion, and a sense of humor are just a few of the many traits that the 3 of us learned from our father. He was the definition of humble. He would hate that we're all here honoring him. He would hate me for standing vigil over his bedside. He would have hated the fussing, but he also would have known it was what I needed to do. He always knew just what each of us needed. I will sorely miss my chats with Dad, hearing his laugh, and those bear hugs. His gentle spirit will be missed by all who knew him. I am grateful to know that on the night of January 27th, God took an angel in his arms and said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant."